Cole Mercer had seen winter kill cattle, men, and hope, but he'd never seen anything like the woman he found at the crossroads that night. Evelyn stood there barefoot in the snow, a dying child pressed to her chest, whispering, "We have nowhere left." Cole should have ridden on. A man like him, scarred, half frozen, half believing, had no business saving strangers. But when he lifted the baby's tiny wrist, he found a red thread bracelet and a secret stitched beneath it that would shatter the whole county. Because the child wasn't hers, and the men hunting her weren't planning mercy. Before we continue Evelyn and Cole's fight for survival, if you love stories of frontier grace, impossible choices, and second chances carved out of winter, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. What happens next will break your heart before it heals it. Snow had a way of swallowing sound on the high plains, especially in the days before Christmas, when even the wind seemed to hold its breath waiting for the Lord's judgment. On that bitter afternoon, 4 roads crossed the empty country, north to the burned-out logging camp, east to a town that wanted no more beggars, west to a ridge where wolves nested, south to nothing but wind and God's silence. And in the dead center of those 4 directions, Evelyn Harper dropped to her knees. Maggie didn't cry anymore. That was the part that frightened her most. The infant's lashes were rimed with frost, lips gone a dusky blue. Evelyn pressed the girl to her chest, rocking back and forth, whispering the only prayer she still remembered, the one her mother taught her long before shame and ruin had branded her name across 3 counties. "Lord, please, bring a hand. Any hand." But nothing moved on the crossroads except a sheet of snow dragging across the ground like a funeral cloth. Evelyn pulled her thin shawl tighter, though it did nothing against the wind. She had walked close to 40 miles in 2 days, begging for a place to warm the child. She had been turned away from cabin, church, and checkpoint. One man had spat. Another had made an offer that made her run. She had traded her wedding ring for a scrap of bread. She had nothing left now, except Maggie and a strand of red yarn the baby clutched, like it meant something holy. The sky darkened in a way that made her think of a preacher lowering his voice before declaring punishment. Snow clouds stacked heavy over the ridge. "Not yet," she breathed. "Please, not yet." A hoofbeat cracked the silence. Evelyn whipped around, shielding Maggie with her body. A tall rider broke through the blowing white and pulled his horse to a stop 3 strides away. His coat was dark with thawed snow, his hat brim iced on the edges, and his gaze sharpened the longer it rested on the bundle in her arms. He dismounted without a word. His boots sank deep. Steam curled from the horse's nostrils. Evelyn's throat closed. "Sir, please don't come closer unless you mean to help. I can work, I can earn it, but I won't trade her." She tightened her hold on Maggie. "I won't." The man, Cole Mercer, didn't answer immediately. He crouched instead, gloved hand brushing Maggie's cheek. His jaw flexed. He touched the baby's wrist, checking for a pulse too faint to feel, unless you knew what death looked like. And Cole knew. He'd held another small wrist once, long ago, and had never forgiven himself for how quickly the life had drained from it. "Her breathing?" he asked, voice low, almost flat. "Thin," Evelyn whispered. "She's cold. So cold." Cole's eyes flicked to the crossroads, the sky, the storm that would break any minute. He reached into his saddlebag, pulled out a small tin box, and cracked the lid. A dull ember glowed inside, a traveling coal carried by ranchers too far from home. He wrapped it in cloth, cupped it, and pressed the warm bundle against Maggie's chest. Evelyn gasped. "What are you—" "Keeping her alive," Cole said. "Hold this here." He didn't raise his voice, but something in the tone made Evelyn obey without fighting. She pressed the makeshift warmer against her daughter. Heat seeped through the cloth and into Maggie's tiny ribs. Cole stood, scanning the horizon like he was measuring the storm's patience. "You got minutes," he said. "Not hours." His words cut like a blade. Short, sure, final. "I know." Evelyn swallowed a sob. I begged every house. I begged the Lord. Begging won't stop that storm." Evelyn looked up sharply. "Sir, I can follow orders. Only help her. Please." Cole studied her again. Her cracked lips, her shaking hands, the way she stood in front of the infant, like she expected the world to swing at her again. He could have ridden on. Strangers weren't his concern anymore. Not after the grave he'd dug with his own hands 3 winters ago. But the baby's fingers clutched a thread of red yarn, and for reasons he didn't care to examine, something inside him shifted. "Get up," he said. Evelyn blinked. "Sir?" "Up. Now." He pointed toward the western path, the one half blotted by snowdrifts. "There's a line shack 20 minutes out. Bare walls, broken latch, but a stove that'll burn hot." Evelyn tightened her arms around Maggie. "I can walk." "You can't." Cole grabbed her elbow, not unkindly, and guided her toward the horse. "Storm's coming faster than your feet. You'll ride." Sir, I don't know you." "You know the cold," he replied. "And it'll kill her before I will." Evelyn hesitated only a breath, long enough for Maggie to twitch in her arms, but she nodded. Cole boosted her onto the saddle, then swung up behind her, bracing her with one arm while keeping the other on the reins. "Hold the coal to her chest," he ordered. "I'm holding." He clicked to the horse, turning it away from the crossroads. Wind rose behind them like a choir of ghosts, sweeping over the tracks they left, wiping them clean. As they rode, Evelyn whispered another prayer, not for herself this time, but for the stranger whose boots creaked in rhythm with the storm. "Lord," she whispered into the wind, "don't let this hand be the wrong one." Cole heard nothing, but he felt Evelyn stiffen when the first snowflake hit. He leaned forward, voice a low command. "Don't look back." And she didn't. The storm swallowed the crossroads whole. The line shack appeared out of the storm the way mercy sometimes arrives. Late, quiet, and easy to miss if you didn't keep your eyes open. It was a squat, timber structure, half buried under snow, with a rusted stovepipe jutting like a broken finger toward the sky. The latch hung crooked. The roof sagged. But smoke scars on the boards told Evelyn one thing. It had held fire before. Maybe it could hold it again. Cole slid off the horse first. Snow broke around his boots. He lifted Evelyn down with one arm, steady and efficient, then motioned for her to keep the ember-wrapped cloth pressed to Maggie's chest. "Inside," he said. "Quick!" Evelyn rushed in. The door groaned like it hadn't been opened in a season. Inside, the air was the kind that made breath show in clouds, and the dark corners pulsed with cold. A stack of split wood leaned against the far wall. A crooked stove sat in the center, its iron belly waiting. Cole moved without wasted motion. He dropped to one knee, scraped dried kindling into a pile, and struck his matchbox once, twice, 3 times before a flame caught. He touched it to the wood. Light flared orange, licking up the sides of the stove. "Sit close," he said. "Not too close. Keep her warm, not burned." Evelyn obeyed, lowering to the floor with Maggie cradled tight. The stove breathed heat into the room, slow at first, then stronger. Color crept back into Maggie's cheeks, faint as a sunrise. Cole stripped off his gloves and coat, hung both by the door. Snow hissed on the hot iron. "You walked far," he said. "Long enough," Evelyn answered, voice brittle. He poured melted snow water from his canteen into a dented tin cup and mixed in a pinch of sugar from a small leather pouch. He held it out. "Try to get her to swallow." Evelyn shifted Maggie carefully. The baby twitched, mouth opening the slightest bit. The first drop slid down. Another followed. "Good girl," Evelyn whispered. "That's it. Just a little." Cole stood, rubbing his hands together. The stove glowed brighter, casting wavering shadows on the walls. "She'll make it if she stays warm the next few hours." "Hours," Evelyn repeated. "Thank you." "I didn't do it for thanks." He spoke plainly, as if trying to keep emotion from muddying the air. His gaze sat on the girl for a moment longer than it needed to, long enough for Evelyn to feel a question rising in him, the kind that had thorns. She braced, expecting judgment. Everyone she'd met in the last 40 miles had worn the same expression, calculating what she was worth, or what could be taken from her. But Cole only asked, "Why the crossroads?" Evelyn swallowed. "It was the only place left that wasn't telling us to leave." Cole's jaw ticked once. He slid another log into the stove. "You're headed nowhere but dead if you go back on any of those roads." "I know." She stared at Maggie, smoothing the girl's wispy hair. "I know." A gust slammed the shack, rattling loose boards. Snow sifted through a crack in the roof. The storm had teeth now, biting deep. Cole turned to face her fully. "You said you can work." "I can. Anything you need. I clean, cook, stitch. I don't steal. I don't cause trouble." Her voice hitched before she could force it steady. "Just don't let her freeze." Cole crossed the room with slow, deliberate steps. He wasn't a gentle-looking man, broad shoulders, rough hands, the kind of quiet sorrow men carried after burying someone they loved. But he lowered himself opposite her, resting his forearms on his knees. "I got a main house 20 minutes from here," he said. "Bigger stove, supplies, bed. But taking you there means eyes will see." Evelyn tensed. You have a wife?" "No." His answer was curt, and he didn't explain the shadow that crossed his face. "But I've got land, and trouble comes quick to people like me." He looked at the baby again. "And quicker to people like you." Evelyn understood the warning. Towns on the frontier didn't ask many questions before passing judgment. A woman with no husband and a child half dead in her arms was guaranteed to invite whisper and scorn. Still, she lifted her chin. I'm not asking for charity. You tell me what rules you need, and I'll keep them. Cole considered this. The wind howled through a seam in the wall. First rule, he said. You don't take what ain't yours. I won't. Second, you stay inside unless I say otherwise. All right. Third, his eyes held hers with a weight she didn't expect. You don't run if the town starts poking around. Running makes wolves chase. Evelyn's pulse stumbled. I only run when someone means to hurt her. Then you listen, Cole said. If trouble comes, I deal with it. Not you. For a moment, only the crackle of the fire answered. Maggie shifted again, letting out a faint, weak cry, the first sound she'd made in hours. Evelyn's breath broke on a sob of relief. Cole rose. Good. She's warming. He stepped to the door, checking the storm through a narrow gap. Snow was falling sideways now, thick as wool. We ride for the house when the wind drops. He nodded toward the stove. Till then, keep that coal close to her. Don't let it slip. Evelyn clutched Maggie tighter. Yes, sir. Cole paused, just long enough for her to notice he didn't like the distance that sir made between them. Cole is fine, he said. He shut the door against the storm. The shack creaked under the weight of wind, but the stove burned bright, and for the first time in 2 days, Evelyn let her shoulders ease, just a fraction. Outside, winter gathered itself for another blow. Dawn broke pale and mean, the kind of winter light that didn't warm so much as expose. By the time the wind eased enough for travel, the line shack had shaken off a thin crust of ice, and the stove's glow had settled into coals the color of old Christmas embers. Cole stamped snow from his boots, tested the air, and gave a short nod. We move. Evelyn wrapped Maggie in every dry scrap she had. The baby's breathing was steadier now, still fragile but alive. Evelyn whispered a tiny prayer of thanks under her breath, half afraid the Lord might change his mind if she said it too loud. Cole saddled the horse without hurry, but without pause. He checked the cinch twice, then motioned her forward. Keep her close to your chest. Cold's worse in the saddle. Evelyn climbed up, wincing at the stiffness in her legs. Cole mounted behind her, bracing her with one arm the way a man braces someone he doesn't plan on losing again. Hold on, he said. The horse pushed into the drifts, shoulders cutting through snow that had settled knee-deep overnight. The world around them was a blur of white and shadow. Trees sagged under ice, branches bowed like mourners. The only sound was the crunch of hooves and the small, steady breaths of the child pressed to Evelyn's heart. Cole steered west, keeping to the low ground where the wind didn't whip so hard. He rode with the instinct of a man who had been raised by country harsher than most men survived. At one narrow pass, Evelyn turned her head slightly. How much farther? 20 minutes, Cole said, if the trail's not drifted over. And if it is, then we make a new one. There was no bravado in his voice, just fact. They crested a small rise and the land ahead opened to a frozen sweep of pasture. Wooden fence posts jutted from the snow like gravestones. A single piece of paper fluttered on one of them, stiff with frost. Cole slowed the horse. What is that? Evelyn asked. Trouble, Cole muttered. He reached out and ripped the paper free. A bold, heavy scrawl ran across it. Barlow claim, keep off. The edges were stamped with the mark of Wade Barlow, a name spoken in town with the same caution used for rattlesnakes. Evelyn felt Cole's arm tense behind her. "It's your land, isn't it?" "It's mine," he said. "Been mine since before Barlow learned to spell his own name." "Then why?" "Because men like him don't care whose name's on a deed when winter keeps folks quiet." He crumpled the paper and shoved it into his coat pocket, as if saving it for a reckoning later. They rode on. By the time the ranch appeared, a cluster of timber buildings tucked against a stand of windbreak pines, Evelyn's fingers had gone numb through her gloves. Smoke rose from a chimney on the largest structure. A barn door banged in the breeze. The sound echoed across the yard like something knocking to be let out. Cole circled the horse around to the Yason main house and dismounted. He helped Evelyn down, his hands firm but careful. Maggie stirred at the sudden change in air. Inside, the house felt warmer than the shack, but colder than a home ought to. It was neat, too neat. Every object had been placed with purpose, and no two items overlapped, as if a man lived here who didn't want anything touching anything else. Cole unlatched the stove's iron door and fed the fire, coaxing it back to life. Evelyn moved to the table and paused. 2 plates sat on a shelf, one clean from recent use, one untouched, with a faint outline of dust around its edges. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Cole caught her glance and looked away. He busied himself with the kettle. "You'll sleep in the side room," he said. "It's small, but it's warm." Evelyn nodded. "Thank you." "Don't thank me." He set the kettle on the stove, then crossed to a drawer. He pulled out a folded book, its cover worn by years of handling. When he opened it, a pressed flower slipped out, pale and fragile. Evelyn froze. A woman's handwriting curled along the margin of a page. A note, brief and tender, written in ink that had faded but not vanished. "That's your wife's?" she asked softly. Cole closed the book in one sharp motion. "She's gone." The words were simple, but the edges were raw. Evelyn bowed her head, not in pity but respect. "I'm sorry." Cole returned the book to the drawer and shut it. Hard. "Storm will keep folks quiet for a bit," he said. "But when roads open, someone will come around asking questions. You need to follow the rules we set." "I will." "Good." He walked to the door, checking the latch, then the windows, then the rifle propped beside the stove. It was the routine of a man who trusted little and expected less. Evelyn watched him secure the last shutter. She felt the weight of the house, its silence, its memories, its grief, press around her. But she also felt the heat rising for Maggie. And for now, that was enough. Cole turned back toward her, jaw tight, voice even. "You and the child are safe here," he said. "For now." Evelyn held Maggie closer. "For now is all we have," she replied. And in that house of shadows and old grief, the fire crackled like it remembered something worth warming again. The house woke slow, like a place that had forgotten what warmth felt like. Frost clung to the inside of the window panes, spiderwebbing outward in patterns that looked almost holy. The stove pushed back against the cold one breath at a time, each crackle echoing through the empty rooms. Evelyn stepped carefully across the floorboards. Maggie tucked against her shoulder. The little girl had slept fitfully, but she had slept, and the faint color in her cheeks felt like a small Christmas miracle. She set Maggie on a folded blanket near the stove, then took in the room properly for the first time. It wasn't filth, she noticed. There was none of that. It was the stillness. Everything was exactly where a grieving hand had placed it, and never touched again. A coat hung by the door. A pair of boots sat beneath it, both too small to be Cole's. Evelyn swallowed and moved to the kitchen. The basin held a thin film of ice. She chipped it out, filled it with warmed water, rolled up her sleeves, and began to scrub. Not to please him, she told herself that. Only to keep her own hands from remembering all the doors that had slammed in her face over the past 2 days. She cleaned the table next, sweeping off dust that had settled like a year's worth of regret. She wiped the shelves. She straightened the utensils. She found a loose button on one of Cole's shirts and threaded a needle before fear or memory could stop her. When she turned, Cole stood in the doorway. He wasn't loud about it. Didn't clear his throat or stomp his boots. He just appeared, tall and silent, shoulders filling the frame. "You don't need to do all that," he said. "I know." Evelyn kept stitching. "I'm doing it anyway." Cole watched her for a long moment. His hat was off, his hair still damp from brushing snow off the roof. He carried the air of a man who tried not to disturb the ghosts in his own home. "You touched her things," he said quietly. Evelyn stilled. Her gaze drifted to the corner where she'd moved a small ceramic bowl, painted, delicate, clearly belonging to a woman who once loved keeping light where the world went dark. "I set it back," Evelyn said. "Exactly how it was." Cole's jaw worked. Not anger, something heavier. "She kept that bowl for our daughter," he said. "Never got the chance to use it." Evelyn's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." "Nothing to be sorry for." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Just didn't expect to see it out." "I'll leave it be," she said. Cole nodded once, a short, clipped motion. Then he turned toward the window, checking the yard. "Jonah'll be here soon." "Jonah?" Evelyn asked. "Hired hand. Comes mornings, sometimes evenings. Good man. Loyal. Talks too much." As if summoned, hooves crunched outside. A knock followed, quick, practiced. Cole opened the door a crack. "Jonah," he said. "Morning, boss." Jonah's breath fogged in the air. "Barn doors, fixed. You got visitors on the road yesterday. Folks asking where you been." Evelyn lowered her eyes, her needle freezing mid-stitch. Cole's voice stayed even. "Who was asking?" "Couple from town. Said they saw sign of fresh tracks near Barlow's line. Looked curious. The bad kind of curious." Cole's hand tightened on the doorframe. "What did you tell 'em?" "That you mind your own business and they should too." Cole gave a faint grunt. Approving. Then he shut the door and locked it. Evelyn's pulse picked up. "They're looking for me," she whispered. Cole crossed the room, took the shirt from her hands, set it aside. "They're sniffing trouble," he said. "Not you." "But I said you're safe here." His tone was flat, the way a man phrases a vow he intends to keep even if it costs him more than he can spare. "Long as you follow the rules." Evelyn nodded. "I will." "Good." He checked the rifle next, then the back latch, then the windows. It was a routine, one he didn't skip, one that kept danger an arm's length away if he was lucky. Evelyn moved to the stove to stir the oat mash she'd started earlier. She ladled a spoonful, blew on it, and brought it to Maggie, who opened her mouth weakly. "That's it," Evelyn murmured. "Just a little." Maggie swallowed. Cole glanced over. Something unreadable crossed his face. "You made that?" "Yes," Evelyn said. He nodded slowly, like he wasn't sure whether the warmth he felt in the room belonged there. She stepped back to the table, set out the 2 plates she'd found earlier, one clean, one untouched but no longer dusty. Cole stared at the second one. "I can move it," she offered. "No," he said. "Leave it." The fire popped in the stove. Jonah's horse snorted somewhere outside. Snow slid off the roof in a slow, heavy sheet. For the first time since stepping through the door, Evelyn felt something shift inside the house. A settling, or maybe a stirring. A place that had been a tomb for too long had taken a breath. Not much. Just enough to keep a child alive. Just enough to keep hope from freezing at the threshold. Cole broke the silence. "You'll need rest before evening," he said. "Storm's not done, and folks ain't either." He didn't elaborate. He didn't have to. Outside, the wind picked up again, carrying the unmistakable weight of coming trouble. By mid-afternoon, the clouds had thinned enough for a hard light to fall across the Mercer yard. It wasn't warmth, not by a long shot, but it was the kind of light that let a man see trouble before it reached his front steps. Cole stepped onto the porch, rifle slung over one shoulder. "Come on," he said. "You need to learn a few things if you're staying here." Evelyn tightened the shawl around Maggie, then handed the baby to the cradle of blankets near the stove. "If she fusses, she won't," Cole said. "Fire's warm. Door's shut. Jonah's close." It wasn't reassurance in his tone, just fact. Evelyn followed him outside. Cold slapped her full in the face, sharp enough to make her eyes sting. Cole led her past the barn to a clearing flattened by hooves and wind. A crude wooden target leaned against a post, 3 knots forming the shape of a rough triangle. Cole planted his boots and held out the revolver. Evelyn stared at it. "I've never—" "That's why we're here." He set the gun in her hands. "Keep your finger off the trigger till you're ready. Feet shoulder width. Elbows loose, not locked." She mirrored his stance, trying not to think about the weight of the iron, or the memory of doors slamming, or the thin line between survival and sin. Cole moved behind her, adjusting her shoulders with 2 quick taps. "You drop that elbow when you're scared. Don't. Makes you shake." "I'm not scared," she said. "Then you're better at lying than most folks." He stepped aside. "Aim. Slow your breath." Evelyn drew in a steadying breath. The cold bit at her lungs. She exhaled and squeezed the trigger. The gun barked like a curse. The shot hit low, kicking up snow. Cole didn't criticize. He just nodded. Again. She fired, missed, a 3rd time, closer. "You're thinking too much," Cole said. "Fear's making you tighten up. You do that when you talk too." Evelyn lowered the gun. "You barely let me talk." "That's usually when you say something true." A flush crept up her neck, half anger, half something else she didn't have the freedom to name. Cole took the revolver back and reloaded with clean, fast motions. "You don't need to be good," he said. You need to not die. He handed it back. Again. This time her shot clipped the edge of the center knot. Barely, but enough. Cole grunted. Approval. They ran the drill until her arms shook. When she finally lowered the gun, Cole pointed toward the woodpile stacked beside the barn. Next lesson, he said. She frowned. What does chopping wood have to do with not dying? It keeps the stove hot, Cole replied. And a warm stove keeps that girl alive. Everything here ties back to that. That ended the argument. He showed her where to place her hands on the axe, how to stand, how to swing without losing balance. She wasn't strong, not in the way men on the frontier needed to be, but she was desperate. Desperation had its own kind of muscle. The thud of the axe echoed across the yard, steady at first, then uneven as fatigue set in. Cole cut boards nearby, working with a carpenter's precision, shaving down edges until the shape emerged. A cradle. Small, sturdy, plain. Evelyn stared. You're making that for Maggie? No sense keeping her in blankets forever, Cole said. Baby needs a place to rest. Her hands trembled. Not from cold. Jonah trotted up then, breath puffing in the air. Boss, he said, I found tracks. East fence line. Someone walked the whole stretch. Slow-like they were hunting for something. Cole set his plane down. Fresh? Couple hours. Human? Boot prints, not ours. Cole wiped sawdust from his hands. His gaze moved toward the horizon where the sky dipped into a hard gray. They'll come again. Evelyn's grip tightened on the axe handle. Cole noticed. That's why you're learning, he said. So you don't freeze up when they do. She swallowed. Is it because of me? Some of it, Cole admitted. Some of it's because this land's worth fighting over. People get mean when winter's long and money's short. He picked up the book he'd left on the porch rail. His Bible. The one with its cover worn thin. A slip of paper peeked from the edge where handwriting curved down the margin. Evelyn hesitated. May I? Cole thumbed the cover open. He tried to read the verse beside the note. His brows pulled tight, eyes dragging along the lines like they weighed something. You read? He asked without looking up. Yes, Evelyn said. Then show me. It wasn't a request or a challenge. More like a man offering up a weakness he hadn't shown anyone since the grave took half his heart. Evelyn stepped closer. She pointed to the first line. Start here. Sound it out. Slow. Cole tried. The words tangled. He tried again. Evelyn guided his finger, her voice low, patient, steady. Jonah pretended not to watch, but he did. Because it was the first time in years he'd seen Cole Mercer stand still long enough to learn anything. The sun dipped behind a bank of clouds, and the air sharpened. Evelyn rubbed her arms against the cold, stepping back from the book. Cole closed it gently, almost reverently. That's enough for today, he said. Wind swept across the yard, carrying with it the faint echo of something moving in the timberline. Jonah turned his head. You hear that? He murmured. Cole's answer was quiet, but certain. They're closer than yesterday. And the three of them, man, woman, and the shadow of a child's fragile breath inside the house, felt the land tighten around them like a warning that hadn't yet chosen its shape. Night came down like a lid. The kind that shut the world tight and left a family, real or not, alone with the truth they carried. Snow scratched against the windows. The stove burned hard, fighting shadows inch by inch. Evelyn rocked Maggie in the side room, humming a tune that wasn't hers. She didn't remember where it came from. Maybe her mother. Maybe a church choir from a life that felt like someone else's birthday candle blown out too soon. The baby's breath fluttered warm against her collarbone. When Evelyn stood to lay Maggie on the pallet, the child whimpered, fingers curling in the edge of a small square cloth. Red thread. A single embroidered M. Evelyn's breath caught. She tugged the cloth loose before Cole could see. She slipped it under the blanket, then pressed her palm over it like hiding a sin. But Cole had eyes like cold iron, quiet, heavy, missing nothing. "You all right?" he asked from the doorway. Evelyn nodded too fast. "She's warm. That's all that matters." Cole leaned a shoulder to the frame, watching the rise and fall of Maggie's tiny chest. He wasn't smiling. He didn't seem like a man who remembered how, but something in his posture softened, just barely. "She's stronger today," he said. "She's stubborn." Evelyn tried to laugh, though it came out thin. "She fights sleep, always has." Cole grunted. "Good trait. World likes to steal breath from the weak." The stove popped in the other room. A draft crept under the door. Cole's gaze dipped to Evelyn's hands. Steady now, but too steady. He narrowed his eyes the way a man does when he senses a truth trying to slip through cracks. "You carrying something you ain't saying?" Evelyn stiffened. "No." He didn't press, but he didn't look away either. Evelyn picked up Maggie to shift her, and the edge of the embroidered cloth slid into view. Barely. A whisper of red against white. Cole's jaw flexed. "That hers?" he asked. Evelyn froze. It's something I keep for her." "That ain't what I asked." Silence thickened, turning the little room into a confessional box with no priest, only judgment. Evelyn clutched Maggie tighter. "She needs me. That's all you need to know." Cole stepped into the room, slow, deliberate. "Name on that cloth ain't yours." Evelyn swallowed hard. "No." "That M. It ain't Maggie's." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "It is now." Cole exhaled through his nose. Not anger, not relief. Something heavier, the weight of a man realizing the danger in his own house had changed shape. "You gonna tell me whose blood she carries?" he asked. Evelyn looked at Maggie, then at the door, then at the window where frost bloomed like a warning. "If I tell you," she said, "you'll make me leave." "I ain't said that." "You don't have to. I've lived enough winters to know what comes when men think a child ain't right, or ain't theirs, or ain't anyone's." Cole's face darkened at that. He folded his arms. "I don't hurt babies." "I know." Her voice cracked. "But other men do." The room went still. Evelyn brushed a fingertip down Maggie's cheek. "She isn't mine by blood. Her mother was taken, hurt, used. She died in the snow before dawn. The baby was the only one still breathing. I couldn't leave her." Cole stared at the tiny girl, her soft breaths, her fragile fists, her impossible will to live. That makes her yours more'n blood ever could, he said quietly. Evelyn blinked fast, as if the words had cut something loose inside her. But, Cole added, voice turning hard again, it also makes her a target. Evelyn looked up sharply. Target? Cole nodded once. Some men don't like reminders of their sins. And if any of them see her here, they'll use law or force to rip her out of your arms. Evelyn's hand trembled. Then what do we do? Cole stepped back, checked the window latch, and locked it. He tested the door. Then he crouched, lifting a loose board near the bed. Below it, dark earth, cool air, and a hidden root cellar. You hide down here if riders come before I'm back to the house, he said. A few minutes could save her. Evelyn stared at the narrow space. For how long? As long as it takes. He placed the board back with a soft thud. Don't run, Cole said. Not unless I tell you. Why? Because runnin' tells hunters something worth chasin'. Evelyn hugged Maggie close, heart pounding. Cole, do you believe I'm trouble? Cole looked at her, really looked, and the answer came slow. I believe trouble's already comin'. You're just the reason I'll be standin' in the doorway when it gets here. A faint shuffle outside drew his attention. He straightened, hand on the rifle resting by the door. Jonah's taken first watch, Cole said. I'll take second. He paused, eyes returning to the embroidered cloth half hidden under Evelyn's fingers. Keep that close, he murmured, but keep it hid. Evelyn nodded. Maggie sighed softly and settled against her chest, innocent to the storm rising beyond the walls, and somewhere out in the timberline, a bootstep crunched, too slow, too deliberate, like a man mapping the edges of someone else's life. Sunday morning crept over the Mercer ranch with a brittle kind of quiet, the kind that meant the wind was thinking before it spoke. Frost lay thick on the fence rails. Smoke trickled steady from the chimney. Inside, Evelyn spooned warm mash into Maggie's mouth, watching the little girl's eyelids flutter with each swallow. Cole tightened the cinch on his coat, unsettled by the silence outside. Jonah should have been here by now, he murmured. He's late? Evelyn asked. Jonah's never late. Cole stepped to the window, pushed aside the curtain. Snow sparkled in the yard. No tracks, no motion, only the vast, cold stillness. Then, 3 slow hoofbeats, not Jonah's rhythm. Cole's hand closed around the rifle. A lone rider approached the porch, robes snapping lightly in the breeze. Reverend Harlan Pike. Tall, lean, face long as a sermon. His white collar gleamed like a blade against the winter gray. Cole muttered something under his breath that no preacher would have liked. Evelyn stiffened. He's from the town? Worse, Cole said. He speaks for the town. Pike dismounted with deliberate care, brushing snow from his sleeves as if filth had settled on them in the ride from civilization to sin. Cole opened the door just enough to block the view inside. Reverend. Mr. Mercer. Pike tipped his hat with a smile thin as paper. Snow's deep today. Surprised to see smoke from your chimney this early. Cole didn't return the smile. Fire's needed. As is righteousness. Pike's eyes slid past Cole's shoulder, trying to peer inside. We've had concerns raised in town. Cole felt the muscles in his jaw lock. Town's always got concerns. This time, Pike said, they're about you. Behind Cole, Evelyn shrank back with Maggie, pressing herself flat against the wall. Pike clasped his hands as though preparing to bless the doorway. Word reached us that a woman has taken up residence here, with a child, unwed, unnamed, unverified. Cole didn't blink. Not your business. It becomes my business, Pike said evenly, when impropriety threatens the spiritual order of our community. The Lord instructs us to hold each other accountable. Cole's fingers tightened around the edge of the door. So you rode all the way out here to lecture my threshold? To ensure, Pike said, voice softening into a mockery of concern, that your home is proper. Evelyn closed her eyes. She knew that tone too well. The tone men used before taking a child for its own good. Pike angled his head. Might I come in? No. Pike's brows lifted, not offended, just delighted in the challenge. Mr. Mercer, rumors, left untended, grow teeth. I'd hate to see your good name gnawed away. I don't got a good name, Cole said. Just a quiet one. And it won't stay quiet long. The words hung like frost. Cole opened the door another inch, enough to block Pike's view of the cradle behind the stove, but not enough to invite him inside. You got something to say, Cole warned. Say it plain. Plain then. Pike folded his hands again. If there is a woman under your roof, she must be claimed, by marriage or by removal, and the child must be accounted for. Evelyn's breath stuttered. She pressed her lips to Maggie's forehead, whispering a prayer too soft for anyone but God to hear. Cole kept his tone even. You don't make rules for my house. I enforce the Lord's rules, Pike corrected, and the town's expectations. Town expects too much, Cole said. Town expects decency. Decency don't freeze to death in a crossroads. Pike's eyes narrowed. So it's true. You brought her here. Cole didn't answer, because answering meant giving Pike a thread to pull. Pike leaned forward, squinting. His gaze snagged on the half-finished wooden cradle sitting near the stove. A cradle, he said softly. Very domestic. Cole shoved the door halfway shut, blocking the view. Visit's over. Pike set his jaw, the veneer of politeness cracking. Mr. Mercer, I strongly advise you to bring the matter before us voluntarily. Otherwise, the town may send men to settle it. Cole's voice chilled. Let them try. They will, Pike said, stepping back, because they believe you are harboring impropriety. And judgment, God's judgment, begins at the house of believers. He mounted his horse, reins creaking. I'll return, he said, with questions that require answers. Cole didn't reply. Pike rode off, leaving hoof prints that looked too close to a warning carved straight into the snow. When Cole closed the door, Evelyn was already standing, Maggie pressed to her chest. I'll go, she whispered, before they come back. No, Cole said. You heard him. They'll take her. They'll take me. I said no. Evelyn shook her head. Fear made her voice small. I won't be the reason they ruin you. You run, Cole said sharply, and they'll chase you. And they won't ask whose baby you're carrying. They'll take her just because they can. Evelyn clutched Maggie so tight the child squirmed. Then what do we do? Cole checked the lock, checked the window, checked the rifle. Same as before, he said. Follow the rules. Keep the child warm. Let me deal with the men who come knocking. Evelyn stared at him, trying to decide if this was protection or madness. Cole didn't blink. "You stay," he said quietly. "That's the rule." She didn't argue again. Outside, the hoof prints filled slowly with drifting snow, but not fast enough to erase the promise they carried. Morning came gray and sharp, the sort of winter dawn that didn't rise so much as crawl across the snow. Evelyn fed Maggie beside the stove while Cole stepped into the yard, boots crunching on ice. Jonah's horse stood tied to the rail, steaming in the cold, but Jonah himself wasn't in sight. Cole scanned the pasture. Then he saw it. A shape near the east fence line. Small, dark, wrong. He strode toward it. Frost cracked under each step. Evelyn watched from the doorway, Maggie pressed against her shoulder. Cole stopped over the body of a young steer, its flank stiff, hide punctured by a single clean bullet. Snow had drifted halfway over it, the way a careless grave might. Pinned to the fence post above the carcass was a folded paper. Cole tore it free, scrawled across it in thick black strokes. "Send the woman away or lose more." No signature, none needed. Jonah appeared from behind the barn, face pale, hands stuffed in his coat. "Boss, I was looking for you. Found tracks up by the ridge. 2 sets. Heavy boots." Cole held up the note. Jonah swore under his breath. "Town's sending messages now?" "Not town," Cole said. "Barlow. Think he knows about her?" "He knows enough." Evelyn stepped onto the porch, shawl tight, breath shaking in the cold. "Cole, what's happened?" Cole didn't answer. He didn't need to. The dead steer said everything, but he did tuck the note into his coat pocket, same pocket that held the earlier claim sign. 2 warnings. Both pointed the same direction. Evelyn's grip tightened on Maggie. "They'll hurt you for hiding us." "No," Cole said. "They'll try to scare me. Hurt me only if scarin' fails." "And if it does fail?" Cole didn't blink. "Then they'll wish they'd stayed home." He strode back toward the house, jaw set, coat flaring behind him. "I'm going to town." Evelyn's heart lurched. "Alone?" "It's my land," he said. "My fight." But she could see something else in his eyes. Something older than anger. A memory. A grave. A promise broken long ago. Cole saddled his horse, checked the rifle, and mounted. Jonah grabbed the bridle. "Boss," Jonah said quietly, "Rig won't help you. Sheriff's half paid by Barlow, half scared of him." "I know." "So why go?" Cole swung the reins. "Because trouble's at my door. Better I meet it halfway than let it circle my house." He rode off. The town sat 10 miles east, stiff with frost and judgment. Christmas wreaths hung on doors, their faded ribbons snapping in the wind. Cole tied his horse outside the sheriff's office and pushed inside. Sheriff Rigg looked up from his desk, soft around the middle, badge tarnished, eyes tired from pretending he didn't see the things he saw. "Mercer," he said, "haven't seen you since fall branding." "Got a problem," Cole replied. He tossed the note on the desk. "Recognize the handwriting?" Rigg read it, sighed, and set it down. "Could be anyone. Could be Barlow." "Could be," Rigg repeated, voice flattening. "But unless I see the man shootin' your cattle myself, law says I can't point fingers." "You mean you won't?" Rigg's jaw twitched. "Law's thin these days, Mercer. Winter makes folks edgy. Maybe someone wanted meat. Bullets too clean. Then maybe someone wanted to make a point. Cole leaned in. And you ain't gonna stop 'em. Riggs swallowed. I'll look into it. That so? It's all I can promise. Cole stared at him a moment longer, long enough to see the fear behind Riggs' eyes. Not fear of Cole, fear of the man who owned half the county. Cole turned and walked out. He didn't get 3 steps before a voice called from across the street. Well now, Wade Barlow drawled, if it ain't the widowed rancher himself. Barlow stood tall in a camel coat too fine for frontier mud, hat tipped low over a smile that didn't reach his eyes. 2 men flanked him, both wearing pistols and impatience. Cole didn't break stride. Barlow followed. Heard you've taken in a guest. Shame folks bring trouble to your doorstep, especially this time of year. Cole halted. You know something, say it. Barlow smirked. I know a lonely man when I see one, and I know an opportunity. He held out a folded contract. Sell me your timber rights. I'll pay fair, and in return, your problems disappear. Cole didn't touch the paper. My land ain't for sale. Everything's for sale, Barlow said lightly. Not this. Barlow stepped closer, dropping his voice. A woman with a child who don't belong? Town won't tolerate it. I'm offering you peace. Cole looked Barlow dead in the eye. Then he flicked the paper back into Barlow's chest. I don't buy peace from men who make war. A muscle in Barlow's cheek ticked, but he smiled again. Slow, poisonous. Suit yourself, Mercer. Storm's comin'. When it hits, don't say I didn't warn you. Cole walked away, boots striking the boards with a finality that made Barlow's men step aside. 10 miles back, Evelyn waited at the window, Maggie asleep against her shoulder, prayer half-formed on her lips. And from the timberline behind the house, a pair of unseen eyes watched the smoke rise. Patient, quiet, marking the moment the game changed. Evening settled heavy over the Mercer ranch, the kind of winter dusk that came too early and stayed too long. Snow whispered along the eaves. The stove glowed deep and red, warming the single room where Evelyn folded laundry and kept one eye on Maggie. The baby had been fussing all afternoon, small whimpers, restless breaths. Nothing loud, nothing dramatic. Sometimes the quiet suffering was the worst kind. Cole set his gloves on the table, shook off the cold, and reached for the Bible he'd left beside the lamp. The pressed flower slipped halfway from its page, trembling with each draft. Again? Evelyn asked softly. Cole grunted. Figure if I'm going to be judged by half this county, might as well know what book they're quoting. He opened to the marked passage. Words drifted in front of him like snow he couldn't catch. Evelyn stepped beside him. Start there, she said, pointing. Sound it out. Cole's jaw tightened. I know where to start. But he didn't. His finger slid under the sentence, hesitated at the first long word. He tried once, stumbled, tried again. The syllables tangled. Evelyn didn't smile, didn't pity. She simply guided his hand, her voice low, steady, patient. Cole forced the word out, then another, then the next. When he finally reached the end of the line, he exhaled like he'd split wood in one clean swing. You did it, Evelyn said. No. Cole closed the book. We did it. It was the closest either of them had come to something like warmth without naming it. Maggie whimpered again. Evelyn crossed the room in 2 steps, lifting the child. Her brow furrowed instantly. She's hot. Cole looked up sharply. How hot? Too hot. Evelyn pressed her cheek to Maggie's forehead. She was fine a few hours ago. Cole set the Bible aside and came to her. He touched the baby's temple, just a brush of rough knuckles, and pulled back as if burned. Fever, he said. Bad. Evelyn's hands trembled. We just got her warm. She can't go sick now. Cole moved fast. He threw logs into the stove, grabbed blankets, laid them near the heat. Wrap her, not too tight. She's burning, Evelyn whispered. Better hot than cold. Fever means she's fightin'. Cole shoved his arms into his coat. Stay with her. Evelyn blinked. Where are you? Lena's cabin, 3 miles south. He buckled the saddlebag. She's got willow bark tincture. Laudanum if it's worse. You can't ride in this weather. It's near whiteout. Cole pulled the door open. Wind punched the room with icy breath. He didn't flinch. You got a better plan? Maggie whimpered, the sound thin as cracked glass. Evelyn's resolve crumbled. Go, she breathed. Please. Cole nodded once. Then he froze, just long enough to look at Evelyn. Use the root cellar if anyone comes, he said. You hear boots? Any boots. You hide, and you don't open that door. Evelyn clutched Maggie. Cole, say you understand. I understand. He grabbed his rifle, slung it across his back. And don't run, he added. Not tonight. Not with her sick. Evelyn swallowed hard. I won't. Cole stepped into the storm. The door slammed behind him, swallowed by the wind. Outside, the world was a blur of white. Cole mounted his horse, kicked once, and the animal lunged forward. Snow lashed his face, stinging like penance. He kept low in the saddle, eyes narrowed, the storm reducing the south trail to little more than instinct and memory. 3 miles. 3 miles in a blizzard that wanted to take him apart piece by piece. The second mile blurred. His hands numbed, reins slipping. He forced his fingers to clench harder. The 3rd mile nearly broke him. He saw Lena's lantern only when he was close enough to touch her fence. Light flickered like a star fighting the dark. He pounded on her door. Lena, hair braided tight, eyes sharp as a judge, opened it. Mercer, you look near frozen. Baby's sick, Cole rasped. Fever. How old? 6 months, maybe. She didn't ask more. She simply turned, snatched bottles off her shelf, filled a tin with hot water. 2 drops every 4 hours, she said. And strip her if she seizes. Cole took the supplies, tipped his hat, more gratitude than words could manage, and stumbled back into the night. The ride home was worse. Storm thicker, wind crueler. Twice he nearly slid from the saddle, vision tunneling to a pinprick. His hands went numb to the wrists. His ears burned, then froze. The world became hoarfrost and pain. But the thought of Evelyn alone with that child, her child by choice, not blood, dragged him on. He reached the house nearly blind. Evelyn threw the door open before he could knock. Heat spilled out. She pulled him inside, breath shaking. Cole, your hands. Fever? He rasped. Still burning. He shoved the tincture into her hands. 2 drops. Now. Evelyn administered the medicine, her fingers brushing Maggie's lips, whispering prayers through clenched teeth. Cole sagged to his knees near the stove, breath coming in ragged bursts, frost melting off his coat. He held out his hands. They were white at the knuckles, stiff as carved bone. Evelyn looked at him with something like fear or awe. Cole, you could have died. He met her gaze, eyes dark as winter earth. Not today. Maggie whimpered once and then breathed easier, just a fraction, but enough. Cole closed his eyes, and outside the storm clawed at the shutters, angry it had failed to take even one of them. Dawn came thin and bitter, scraping frost across the windows like a warning. Evelyn barely slept. She kept Maggie tucked inside her shawl, rocking her through the night, counting breaths like prayers, steady then shaky, then steady again. Cole hadn't slept either. His hands were wrapped in cloth, fingers raw from the storm, but he moved with the same grim purpose he always did, checking windows, checking rifles, checking the front latch twice. He paused only once, staring at the cradle near the stove. The unfinished wood caught the morning light in a way that made it look like hope hadn't decided which direction to run yet. Jonah burst in without knocking. "Boss!" He stopped, panting. "5 riders. Coming fast. From the East Road." Cole's jaw clenched. "Barlow?" "And Reverend Pike. Sheriff Riggs with him, too." Evelyn straightened, holding Maggie tighter. "Why so early?" Cole didn't answer. Men like that didn't come early unless they meant to corner someone before breakfast prayers. He took his rifle, checked the chamber, then set it by the door. Not lifted, not aimed. Just waiting. Boots crunched outside. 5 silhouettes pulled up before the porch, breath rising in pale clouds. Horses stamped the frozen ground. Saddles creaked. The kind of sound that said decision time. Barlow dismounted first, dusting snow from his coat with theatrical gentleness, like sin couldn't cling to fine wool. "Well now," he drawled, "seems you've had a rough night, Mercer." Cole opened the door just wide enough to block their view inside. His frame filled the threshold. "What do you want?" Sheriff Rigg cleared his throat, avoiding eye contact. "Cole, we're just here to settle a matter proper-like." Pike stepped forward, Bible tucked under his arm as if the snow itself were unclean. "Mr. Mercer, the town requires clarity. A woman is living under your roof, unwed, unclaimed, and the child is of uncertain origin." Evelyn stiffened even though she couldn't see them. Maggie stirred against her collarbone. Barlow gave a sorrowful shake of his head. "You're a good man, Mercer. But you've taken in trouble. Folks are uneasy." Cole didn't move. "Uneasy ain't my problem." "It becomes your problem," Barlow said, "when the town decides to act." He nodded to his men. They spread slightly, not reaching for guns, but close enough to imply the thought had crossed their minds. Pike raised his voice, practiced and smooth. "The girl must leave, Mr. Mercer, and she must leave today." Cole's grip tightened on the edge of the door. "No." Barlow smiled thinly. "You misunderstand. This ain't a request. It's mercy. We're giving you a way out." Rigg added, "If she stays, folks'll come. More than just us." Cole's silence pressed against all of them. Inside, Evelyn took one step forward, heart slamming. She could hear every word through the walls, hear the verdict forming before it was spoken. Barlow folded his arms. We brought supplies, food, blankets, enough to get her to the church house. After that, town'll decide what to do with her and the babe. Evelyn's breath broke. She bowed her head over Maggie, whispering something between a prayer and an apology. Cole didn't blink. She's not leaving. Cole, Barlow warned, don't make this harder. You can keep the ranch, keep your quiet life. Just hand over the trouble. He stepped closer. And if you don't, trouble will take everything else. A long silence stretched, the kind that split lives clean down the middle. Then Evelyn stepped into the doorway behind Cole. I'll go. Her voice was small but steady. Cole didn't turn, didn't let them see her face. No. Evelyn tightened her hold on Maggie. If they stay, they'll ruin you. If I leave, maybe they won't. That's not your call. It has to be, she whispered. I won't watch them tear your life apart. Barlow's smile sharpened. See? She's got sense. Evelyn stepped forward, just an inch, but enough to show she meant it. Enough for Maggie to let out a soft cry. Pike seized on the sound. Mr. Mercer, listen to the child. She needs stability, protection, righteousness. Cole's shoulders rose and fell in a slow breath. Snow crackled on the porch roof, the cold settling thick, waiting for the choice. He spoke without turning. Evelyn, back inside. She didn't move. Cole's fists tightened until the cloth on his hands strained. Riggs shifted nervously. Cole, if she's going, better she goes now, before more folks show up. Barlow extended his gloved hand. Let her leave, Mercer. Do right by the county. Evelyn whispered, Please. If I walk out, maybe they'll stop, maybe they'll leave you alone. She took one more trembling step, and in that instant, just that little motion, the entire house, the entire ranch, the entire winter seemed to hold its breath. Cole's silence was a blade. Barlow stepped back, satisfied. Good woman, he said. We'll take her to... Shut up, Cole said quietly. Barlow blinked. Cole finally turned, meeting Evelyn's eyes. In his stare there was pain and fury, and something older than both, a promise he had sworn once and broken and would not break again. But he saw her decision. She was leaving, not because she wanted to, because she believed it was the only way to save him. Cole's jaw locked. The part of him that wanted to drag her back inside screamed against the part that knew letting her choose was the only way she'd trust him again. He stepped aside, not in surrender, in acknowledgement. Evelyn gathered Maggie and stepped out into the cold. Every man on the porch exhaled, as if victory had been earned. But Cole didn't look defeated. He looked like a man who had just decided exactly how far he would go when the reckoning came. And Winter, watching from the ridgeline beyond the pasture, seemed to shiver, not from cold, but from the knowledge that something had shifted that could not be undone. When Evelyn stepped off the porch, the cold took her like a hand closing around a candle. Snow hissed beneath her boots. Maggie whimpered against her shoulder, thin, fading. 5 riders watched, satisfied. Cole only closed the door behind him, slow and controlled, like restraint was the last weapon he owned. The house felt hollow, too quiet. The cradle sat open by the stove, blankets tossed from Evelyn's rush. Cole knelt beside it. A sliver of red thread cloth peeked from under the pad. He lifted it. A folded scrap of paper lay beneath. Not my blood. Not safe in town. They'll take her. I'm sorry. E. The words cut deeper than any knife. Outside, hoofbeats faded toward town, but lighter steps angled the other way, toward the pines. Evelyn wasn't being escorted. She was running. Cole grabbed his coat, rifle, lantern. No hesitation, no curse. On the porch, he found the small, staggering tracks of a woman carrying a child who could no longer hold herself upright. "Jonah!" he called. The ranch hand ran up. "Boss, watch the house." Cole swung into the saddle and tore toward the tree line. Snow turned the world to blindness. Branches clawed at his coat. The lantern's glow shook violently, slicing brief paths through the white. Then, a cry. Weak. A baby's. He dismounted and ran, boots sinking deep. Under a fallen spruce he found them. Evelyn curled in the snow, shawl over Maggie, both shivering too hard to speak. "Evelyn," he growled, dropping to his knees. "Look at me." Her lips were blue. "I didn't want them. Taking her. They won't." Cole pulled Maggie against his chest, tucking her under his coat, feeling her heat slipping fast. "You leave. They win. That's all." Evelyn tried to sit. Failed. "I thought maybe God wanted me gone." Cole lifted her, voice low and sharp. "God didn't send Barlow." He mounted with her in front, Maggie wrapped between them. The horse fought the snow, stumbling, pushing through the white misery of the pines. Halfway home, Evelyn sagged. Cole nudged her upright. "Stay with me." Maggie gave one thin cry, barely there. Cole pressed her tighter against his chest, whispering, "Not today. Not you." The ranch lights appeared through the storm, two flickers fighting the dark. Jonah saw them and sprinted to the door. Inside, fire roared. Cole carried Evelyn in, then returned for Maggie. He stripped off his coat, wrapping the baby in its steaming center, rubbing her limbs, coaxing breath. Evelyn's voice cracked. "Did you find the note?" "Yes." "I didn't want you burdened." "I'll take the burden," Cole said. "You stay alive." Maggie coughed, a tiny, fragile sound, but enough. Evelyn let out a broken sob of relief. Cole bowed his head, breath shaking, cold still burning his hands. Outside, the storm slammed the shutters in fury, because it had lost. And Cole Mercer, drenched in snowmelt and resolve, understood one truth. Clearly, he would fight the whole county before he let either of them be taken again. Cole rode into town at mid-morning, frost clinging to his coat. Evelyn and Maggie wrapped close beneath his arm. Folks stopped what they were doing the moment they saw him. A man carrying a woman and child into the square always meant trouble, and everyone knew trouble walked faster in winter. Barlow stood near the well, Sheriff Rigg beside him, Reverend Pike holding his Bible like a verdict. Snow drifted around them. A church bell tolled once, cold as a warning. Pike stepped forward. "Mr. Mercer, you've brought the woman back. Better to settle this now." Cole ignored him. He looked at the crowd first, then at the men who had come to break him. "I came so you can hear the truth once," he said. Barlow smirked. "Truth is simple. She doesn't belong on your land. Cole stripped off one glove. Frost-bitten welts glowed along his knuckles. These came from riding through a storm to get medicine for a child you were content to let die. A few murmurs stirred. Evelyn held Maggie closer, her breath shaking. Lena, the midwife, stepped forward. He's telling it true. The baby's fever near stopped her breath. Nora Dwyer pushed through the crowd. I saw him ride past my window last night. A man doesn't fight a storm like that unless he's saving a life. Riggs shifted uneasily. Let's all calm down. Cole stepped toward him. Calm was yesterday. Today is the reckoning. Barlow folded his arms. We're offering mercy. Turn her over, and this ends. Cole's voice cut through the air. No. Pike lifted his Bible. Without marriage, she has no standing. Neither does the child. The law demands order. Cole turned to Evelyn. Then we give the law what it wants. Evelyn froze. Cole. Marry me, he said. Here. Now. Gasps rippled. Pike blinked as if slapped. Marriage is sacred, Mr. Mercer. Not a shield. It is today, Cole answered. Nora lifted her chin. I'll witness. Lena nodded. So will I. Pike hesitated, trapped by the two most respected women in town. Slowly, he opened his book. The vows were stiff, rushed, awkward, but they held. Evelyn's voice trembled, but she spoke every word. Cole's vows came low and steady, like he meant every syllable carved into winter stone. With the authority vested in me, Pike finished, you are husband and wife. The square fell silent. Cole placed a hand on Evelyn's back, gentle but unmistakably claiming. Maggie stirred against his coat, letting out a small sound that carried farther than Pike's sermon. Barlow's face tightened. This changes nothing. Cole met his stare without blinking. It changes everything. She's family now. Anyone touches her, or the child answers to me. Rigg looked away. The crowd parted as Cole led Evelyn toward the horse. Not as sinners, not as fugitives. As a family the town could no longer take. Snow fell soft and relentless as he lifted them both into the saddle. And for the first time all winter, the cold felt like it was losing. As the snow settles over Mercer Ranch, one truth remains. Mercy can grow in the hardest seasons, and family is sometimes the gift we never expected. If this story touched your heart, I'd be grateful if you left a comment. Tell me which moment stayed with you. Your thoughts mean more than you know. Please consider giving this video a like. And if you'd enjoy more stories of courage, kindness, and second chances, I invite you to subscribe. Thank you for spending this time with me. May warmth and grace follow you into the rest of your day.